alone, starving and terrified until a stranger shared a meal and rewrote her destiny. The sky above Sidros didn't just fall, it shattered. A ripple tore through the upper atmosphere like an invisible scream, bending clouds into broken shapes and bleeding strange colors across the twilight. Dust rose in shimmering curtains. Power grids flickered across the outskirts of the industrial zone, casting jagged shadows over rooftops and rust-choked antennas. The impact came without warning, not a warning shot, not a sonic boom, just a flash of white. A sound like the planet exhaling wrong, and then fire. Something slammed into the old landfill crater 3 miles west of Sector 9, turning ancient metal heaps and forgotten machinery into a flaming graveyard. The air warped, the soil groaned, and at the center of the crash site, half buried in smoke and sparking hull shards, a figure crawled out of the wreckage like the last surviving thought of a dying star. She wasn't supposed to be alive. Her name, Leora Venn, although even she barely remembered it through the static in her head, echoed through her blood like a forgotten frequency. Her limbs moved without clarity, instinct dragging her forward through burning metal-torn soil and the sickening scent of ionized blood. Her skin glowed faintly in the low light, not from radiation, but from something older. Something threaded inside her, embedded beneath her sternum. The core pulsed. Not a machine, not entirely organic. Something in between. It wasn't supposed to activate, not like this. Behind her, the wreck of her pod hissed as it gave its last breath. A single emergency light blinked twice, then went out forever. Leora's hands clawed at the dirt fingers, twitching with heat. Her eyes, wide and unfocused, shimmered gold before bleeding back to violet. Long ears hidden under tangled, dust-caked hair twitched violently. She coughed. Blood. Not all hers. Hopefully. She didn't know where she was. Just that the planet spun wrong. The gravity felt lopsided, and the light tasted metallic. She had to move. Every instinct screamed to vanish. Hide. Lock down the core, but her body trembled with betrayal. Muscles snapped with memory. She staggered up the side of a scorched trash dune and collapsed at the top, barely conscious. In the distance, the lights of a human settlement flickered like stars, trying not to die. They weren't supposed to find her yet. Not the humans. Not the others. But the core had other plans. Somewhere behind her eyes, something opened. A voice. No, a shape. Familiar. Alien. It didn't speak in words, but in meaning, in weight. And that weight pressed into her skull like it was trying to rewrite who she was. It whispered names, coordinates, pain, and then worse, it remembered. It remembered her. The core wasn't just storing history. It was choosing its next iteration, choosing her. Leora screamed, but it came out soundless. In that moment, something across the sky listened. High above, hidden in Sidrus's upper stratosphere, a cloaked vessel stirred. Sleek, predatory, old. Far older than the tech it mimicked. Aboard it, something tall and draped in folding armor turned toward the surface. Sensors lit up. Lifeform located. Genetic match 92%. The signal was awake, and so was she. Leora collapsed behind an abandoned scrapyard sign marked Property of Drexo Corp. Violators will be prosecuted. The metal was warm. Her body buzzed with impossible data. The core inside her blinked once, then transmitted. A pulse, silent, wide. It leapt through satellites, bounced off relay towers, slid through dark fiber lines buried in corporate bunkers that hadn't had human eyes in decades. Something had awakened, something built to sleep forever. And now every side human-alien machine would come looking, not for what she carried, but for what she had become. The garage at the edge of Rivet Hollow wasn't on any map, and if you asked the zoning board, it didn't technically exist. Built half from scrap, half from ambition, it leaned against a forgotten transmission tower like an exhausted drunk clinging to a lamppost. Inside, beneath a tangle of blinking cables and coffee-stained schematics, Pax Corbin soldered the future together with trembling fingers and unbrushed hair. The boy wasn't a prodigy. He wasn't even licensed. What he had was time curiosity and a broken moral compass when it came to scavenging corporate junk for parts. He'd been fixing a thermal regulator that once belonged to a mining drone when the signal hit. It wasn't loud. It didn't set off alarms or crash satellites. But every device in the room flickered, paused as if holding its breath. And then the air changed. The fluorescent lights above him dimmed. The old relay screens turned blue, then static, then gold. For one surreal second, every forgotten interface in the garage displayed the same shape, a circle, broken, reformed, spinning. Pax leaned forward, mouth half open, eyes wide. The regulator hissed and blew out a puff of steam in protest. Then just as suddenly, everything went back to normal, except for the humming. Faint, low frequency, like the garage had developed a heartbeat. Pax blinked, muttered, "Not again." The last time something like this happened, he accidentally fried 3 servers and caused the toaster to develop a personality. But this time, this was different. Outside, the wind changed direction. Cedros didn't get wind in Rivet Hollow, just the dry cough of industrial air recycling and the occasional thermal draft from reactor outflows. But now wind, real physical dust-laced. Pax stepped out of the garage and saw it. Smoke rising over the junkyard crater. Something had fallen. He stared slack-jawed as embers drifted in the sky on upside-down snow. Crashes weren't uncommon here. The atmosphere was a mess, and corporations tended to dump old shuttles the way you might flick a cigarette into a storm drain. But this wasn't scrap, not by the way the air shimmered. He was about to turn back inside, maybe grab a drone to scout it when he heard it. The sound of someone limping. He froze. A shadow, no, a figure dragged itself along the perimeter fence. Slender, hunched, wrapped in dust and light. Not quite human, not quite alien. Something in between. She stumbled forward, hoodie-torn pants, scorched long ears twitching like antennae searching for a signal. Her eyes locked onto his, and time decided it had better hold still. Pax took a step back. She took one forward, then her legs gave out. She hit the dirt hard, face-down, breath heaving like a glitching engine. Pax swore under his breath and rushed to her. Up close, she looked like a disaster, held together by willpower. Her skin was scraped, but beneath the grime it shimmered faintly, as if something inside her refused to stop glowing. A faint pulse ticked just under her collarbone, slow and wrong. He reached out, hesitated, then placed 2 fingers against her neck. Alive. Barely. He looked around. No patrols, no drones, no neighbors. Just him, her, and a garage full of illegal tech and expired instant noodles. She coughed, turned her head slightly, and whispered something, not English, not standard, just a sound, a tone. His wristband translator buzzed and failed again. Then she passed out. Pax stared at her, this strange girl who had fallen from the sky, bleeding starlight and secrets, and muttered the only thing that made sense. "I'm so getting arrested for this." He hoisted her up with the graceless effort of someone who rarely lifts anything heavier than a fusion battery. She was light, alarmingly so. Back inside the garage, he laid her on the couch, really just a reinforced storage crate with cushions stolen from 3 different chairs, and stared at her again. She didn't look dangerous, but the core in her chest disagreed. Even asleep, it pulsed, and every screen in the garage began to flicker again. Pax grabbed his toolkit and powered down everything but the vitals. He wasn't stupid. Whatever she wasn't just another stranded alien. She was a fuse, and something out there had just struck the match. When Aris awoke, she didn't open her eyes. She listened first. The hum of machines, the faint beep of something diagnostic, the scent of solder and burnt plastic. Her fingers flexed slowly against something soft fabric, not ship-grade, not sterile, worn, human. She blinked. The ceiling above her was crisscrossed with pipes and cables like a nervous system exposed. Dim lights flickered overhead in uncertain rhythm, and near her left hand something hissed. then purred. She sat up fast, too fast, and the world tilted. A hand reached out to steady her. Whoa, easy. You've been out for 2 cycles. The voice was male, young and tired in a way that sounded practiced. Eris turned her head, the boy from the crater. He was seated on a stool beside a cluttered workbench. His wild hair caught in a beam of dusty light goggles pushed to his forehead like a crown of someone pretending to be braver than they felt. He held a steaming mug and a tool she didn't recognize. "What is this place?" she rasped. "My garage," he said. "Technically illegal, definitely unsanitary, but weirdly cozy once you get used to the smell of existential dread." Eris blinked again. "You brought me here. You kind of collapsed in my driveway. What was I supposed to do? Leave a sign that says alien in yard, do not water?" She tried to stand. Her legs screamed, her vision doubled. "Whoa, nope, sit, stay. You're leaking light from your neck again." She reached for her collarbone. The core node was pulsing faintly worse. It was syncing with the room. "That's not good," she muttered. "No," he agreed. "It's terrifying." All my devices started talking to each other in math, even the toaster. I think it achieved self-awareness and promptly gave up. She narrowed her eyes. "Who are you?" He set down the mug. Pax Corbin, tinkerer, dropout, local disappointment, and you are?" Eris hesitated. "Eris, that your name or your designation? It's what I remember." He nodded slowly, watching her. "So Eris, want to tell me why your blood looks like melted neon and why my garbage tier signal booster just intercepted a distress ping from somewhere between here and the outer belt?" She looked down. Her hand was trembling. "I was carrying something," she said. "No, I am carrying something." Pax tilted his head. "Define something." "A shard of a memory core," she said, voice low, encoded, precursor era, not just data. Personality threads, history, song lines, the last map to something ancient. Pax went still. Then he leaned forward, his voice dropping. "You're serious. I didn't choose it. They fused it to me before I fled. Said it had to live in something biological. I was the only viable candidate left. And now I'm being hunted," she said. "Tracked. The signal's been broadcasting ever since the crash." He stood, walked to his terminal, pulled up a feed. Static bloomed across the screen, interspersed with geometric pulses. "I think I picked that up yesterday," he said. "I thought it was corrupted telemetry from a failing beacon, but this... It's the core," she whispered. "It's waking." The air changed again. The screens rippled. Tools on the wall vibrated, metal singing against metal. Then one of the garage's old relay units sparked to life. A voice, no, not a voice, a presence cut through the static. Low, harmonic, not speaking in any language but in intention. Eris flinched. "That's not possible. It's too soon." Pax stared, awed. "What is it saying?" She didn't answer at first. Then softly, "It says, I remember." The light from the core bled outward, threading through the floor panels into the machines. Pax's drone arm raised itself slowly, twitching, like it remembered how to salute. The door locks disengaged. The lights dimmed to blue. Pax stepped back. "Okay, that's new." Eris gritted her teeth. "It's calling something." "You mean someone?" "No," she said, her voice tight. Something bigger. And then the alarm started. A low drone from his external sensor. A ping from the upper relay. An audio burst from a proximity field. Pax spun to his console. Motion, perimeter breach, multiple signatures, no IDs. He looked at her heart, hammering. "Eris, you didn't just fall out of the sky. You led something here." She was already on her feet. "I need to go," she said. "You're not safe." He grabbed her arm, not hard, just enough to anchor her. Too late for that. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat something passed between them, unspoken. Not trust, not yet, but recognition. He ran to the wall, slammed open a locker, and tossed her a battered pulse sidearm. "Fine," he said, breathing hard. "We'll deal with it together." From the sky outside, something howled, and the core inside her chest began to sing. The first drone didn't make a sound. One moment, the garage's outer sensor lights were flickering, with their usual glitchy pulse dim, twitching harmless. The next, they snapped red, then went out. Pax barely had time to slam the window shutter before something hissed past it, cutting a clean line through the concrete wall like a laser through butter. Dust rained from the ceiling. Ren ducked instinctively, dragging Pax down with her. "Not human tech," she muttered. "Not even proxy-built. This is silent directive hardware." "They're here," Pax coughed, wiping dust from his face. "Silent what?" Aris pulled the battered pulse sidearm closer. "They were ghosts during the fall. Black protocol operatives. Programs on legs, not people. They sound charming. They're not here for diplomacy." The ceiling trembled above them as another impact landed just outside. Pax leapt for his desk, hand flying over a jury-rigged console wired into half a dozen ancient comm arrays and one coffee machine that beeped aggressively whenever overclocked. "I've got 3 inbound signatures," he said. "Speed unreal. They're gliding, hover tech, no heat profile, cloaked drones, meant for extraction or execution. I'm guessing they don't offer a third option." The garage's metal door buckled inward with a shriek of tortured steel. Eris moved first, back entrance. She shouted, lunging for the gear pile. She grabbed a webbed satchel full of interface nodes and tossed a sensor grenade at the ceiling just as a beam of white-hot plasma punched through it. Light exploded. Smoke filled the air. They sprinted through the cluttered back hall past bins of scorched alloy and a half-built hover cart that Pax had once hoped would deliver tacos. He slammed his fist against the rear keypad. Nothing happened. Locked out, he cursed. "They've already compromised the system." Eris stepped forward, raised her hand to the scanner, and pulsed the core. A circle of light spread from her palm, interfacing with the old tech. The lock fizzed, screamed like it was offended, and then disengaged with a chime. The door groaned open. Outside the alley, dark, cracked pavement, a fire escape leading up one side, a dumpster that may have been sentient and resentful. They ran. Behind them, the first drone slipped into the garage like a shadow. Sleek, faceless. It scanned the space once, then split into 2 shapes, cloaked, refracted hunting. Aris and Pax hit the rooftop 2 blocks down before Pax doubled over, wheezing. "I am not built for this much cardio." Aris didn't stop. She scanned the horizon, eyes twitching to the ambient energy spikes now crowding the atmosphere. "They're not just here for me," she said. Pax straightened, squinting. "What do you mean?" She pointed. Across the city skyline, blue spears of light rose silently into the clouds, 5, then 6, then 12. Relay points, signal forks. "They're deploying the Echo protocol," she said. "That sounds bad. It means they're trying to overwrite me," Aris whispered. "Reprogram the shard. Format the host. Me." Pax stared. "You mean they're going to reboot you if they get close enough?" "Yes. They'll wipe what I've become and overwrite me with a cleaner version." "You mean erase you?" She didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her satchel and pulled out a small, flat disc, no bigger than a coin. She handed it to Pax. "This is a seed crystal," she said. "If I fall, if they breach my defenses, this can extract and store my identity. Not the core, just me." Pax stared at it. "And what am I supposed to do with it?" "Keep it safe. Get it off-world if you have to." He took the disc slowly. "You're talking like you don't plan to survive this." "I don't plan to lose," she said, "but I don't plan to lie to myself either." Suddenly his wristband crackled. A garbled voice came through, layered in static. "Broadcast in Sector B12, unknown signal origin, traces to core fragment." Eris's eyes sharpened. "That's not from the attackers." Pax frowned. "It's an open channel. Civilian, local tech scavenger forum, I think." Aris reached for the transmitter. "Patch me through," he hesitated. "Why, what are you doing?" She stared at the glowing lines beneath her skin, calling for help. You think anyone's gonna show up to help you take on whatever this is? No, she said. But if the directive is broadcasting wideband, overwrites their signals vulnerable too. If I bounce the shard's memory echo through enough independent nodes, I can jam their pulse. Pax blinked. You're going to fight their tech. With junk radio forums, every rebel starts with someone talking too loud in the wrong place. She activated the mic, and she spoke not in human dialect, not in the sharp staccato of her native coding tongue, but something between both. Rhythmic, strange, old. All across the city, dormant receivers sparked. Old ham radios stuttered to life. A vending machine on 9th Street played 3 notes in sequence and then exploded in celebration. The core inside Eris's chest glowed white-hot. From the rooftop edge, Pax watched as a drone swooped in from the haze, red eyes gleaming. He raised his pulse gun. I hate Thursdays, he muttered. And then the fight began. The first pulse nearly killed him. Pax didn't even see the drone fire. One blink, he was lining up the shot. The next, the rooftop buckled under a concussive wave and flung him backward, like a puppet yanked by invisible strings. His pulse gun skittered across the gravel, sparks dancing from its barrel. His back slammed into a ventilation duct. For a second, he couldn't breathe. Then came the sound. Not an explosion, something worse. A frequency, low, hungry, wrong. His ears rang with it, but more than that, his teeth vibrated like his bones were tuning forks for someone else's signal. Across the rooftop, Eris stood frozen, lit from within, like glass catching starlight. Her veins shimmered, her eyes wide, pupils dilated into gold rings. The shard was responding. Her body was no longer resisting the overwrite. It was sinking. No, 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 Eris. Pax scrambled forward, slamming a boot into the side of the drone before it could fire again. It slid sideways, re-angled, and fired a tether. A net of light burst forth, meant to pin her, immobilize her for the rewrite. Pax tackled her. The net clipped his shoulder instead. 1,000 volts of directed static ripped through him. He screamed once, biting down on the sound, and collapsed in a heap of shudders and sparks. Eris blinked. The sync broke. The pulse in her chest faded from gold to blue. The drone hesitated, almost curious, then recalibrated, whirring louder. Eris turned to it, and for the first time, she reached back. Not physically. Not with a weapon, with the core. Her palm glowed as she lifted it. The air distorted, folding like a page too hot from the oven of reality. The drone twitched, then shuddered, then stopped midair. Its red eyes flickered, then it dropped to the rooftop with a quiet thud. She turned to Pax. His lips were blue, still twitching, skin slick with sweat. Eris fell to her knees beside him and touched 2 fingers to the center of his forehead. No, she whispered. Not now, not after all this. She closed her eyes and did something no core-bonded carrier was ever supposed to do. She redirected. Core energy, normally forbidden to affect organic neural pathways, flowed outward, not as a weapon, not as memory, as healing, as repair, as pure, stabilized feedback. She felt Pax's fractured nervous system stutter, then stabilize. He inhaled, hard, like the first breath after drowning. He coughed violently, blinked at her through hazy tears. Ow, ow. Did I die? Please tell me I died so I can sue the afterlife? Eris let out a laugh so unexpected it startled them both. Still you, she said, unfortunately. He looked at her with something new in his eyes. Not just awe or fear, recognition. What the hell did you do? I diverted the feedback loop, she said. Taught the core to differentiate between attacker and ally. You taught ancient alien tech to have morals, I'm learning, she whispered. The rooftop wasn't safe anymore. Drones circled, not just 1, 3, 5, 11. The sky above churned with them, now silent machines blinking into place like falling stars made of steel and data. Eris pulled Pax to his feet. We can't run anymore, she said. We have to go into the network. Into it, Pax said, dazed. You mean like cyberspace? She gave him a look. He raised a hand. Okay, not cyberspace, but like what the city's grid, we hack back worse, she said. We go where they built the overwriter, which is... She looked toward the spires of light still rising across the city. Relay towers laced with cloaked tech transmitting pulses meant to blanket every system within kilometers. One of them stood above the others, taller, brighter, half a skyscraper, half a temple, all wrong. There, she said, Relay 0. You want to walk into the central tower and what, plug yourself in? No, Ariz said. I'm going to overwrite them. He stared, and for the first time didn't argue, because for the first time he realized what she was. Not just a fugitive, not just an accident, a rewrite, a rebellion, alive. The signal would keep hunting, the drones would keep coming, but somewhere inside that tower was the source of their message. And Eris was done running. She turned to Pax. Can you get us there? He nodded. With enough duct tape and righteous anger, yeah, I think I can. They vanished into the fire escape shadows as the next wave of drones circled overhead. In a city buried in silence and signal, a counter-signal had begun to stir. The girl who had fallen from the stars was ready to send a message of her own. The tower loomed like a blade plunged into the heart of the city. Relay 0 wasn't on any map. It didn't need to be. It was built into the skyline like a secret everyone ignored. Half of it was wrapped in scaffolding that no crew ever used. The other half shimmered beneath false projections, an illusion meant to blend it into the buildings around it. If you didn't know it existed, you couldn't find it. But Eris could feel it. The signal buzzed behind her eyes with every step closer. Not pain, not quite. It was anticipation, recognition, like the tower knew she was coming. Pax pulled the van into an underground loading dock beneath the tower. The vehicle, Entropy 2.0, as he called it, shuddered as he cut the engine. The fake plates had held. The signal dampeners were still running, for now. They sat in silence for a moment. Above them, somewhere in that spire, was the transmitter. The core was waking more fragments every day, scattered pieces of alien memory embedded in secret places. But if the tower broadcasted a full overwrite signal, if it aligned her mind to the wrong code, there wouldn't be any more fragments, no more resistance, just silence. This is a bad idea, Pax said. Yep, Aris replied, popping the back hatch. He followed her out, grabbing a pack of tools and a plasma cutter. You know, when you said you were the key to all this, I figured we'd find some big switch and just flip it. I wasn't expecting a full mental showdown with ancient technology and probably a security system that bites. We'll improvise, he groaned. I hate improvising. That's how I accidentally built a toaster that plays funeral music. They crept down a maintenance corridor. The air was cold and still, too still. The walls pulsed faintly with residual signal like veins through concrete. Eris placed her palm against one and flinched. The tower was alive, not sentient, not like her, but programmed to act as if it were. An autonomous transmitter with layers of adaptive defense, the kind of system that didn't need guards because the building was the guard. She whispered something in the core's tongue. The wall rippled in response. Pax said, pulling out a cable. Is it supposed to do that? I just told it I'm coming home. That's somehow worse. They reached the control floor. A single hallway stretched out before them, lit in pale blue. No doors, no windows, just a walk straight into whatever waited. At the end, a chamber, circular, quiet. The center was occupied by a massive crystalline array, like a heart made of light and memory. Dozens of projection strands floated above it, shifting in shape and tone. Voices muttered in alien tongues. Not sound, just meaning streaming through the air like data ghosts. Aris stepped forward. The array pulsed. Warning came a voice, not mechanical, not human, something else. A chorus. Unstable identity detected. Core anomaly present. Beginning overwrite protocol. Override, Aris said. Authorization Echo 712. The voices hesitated. Pax stepped back. Is it working? No. Then the array struck. A bolt of energy lashed out straight into her chest. She didn't fall. She screamed once, then braced herself. The core inside her lit up like a dying star going nova. Every part of her burned and froze at the same time. Her thoughts fragmented, splintered, reassembled. Then she pushed back, not with force, with self, with memory, with defiance. The projection strands shimmered. Images erupted, dozens at once. Aris as a child, as a soldier, as a fragment of someone else. Then something cracked. Not in her mind, in the array. The tower flinched. She's overriding the override, Pax muttered. That's illegal in like 6 languages. Aris stepped forward, 1 foot at a time, shaking. No, she said, voice steel through static. I'm not your weapon. I'm not your vessel. I'm your reminder. The array responded, faster now, flickering. Data surged. The signal fought back, but so did she. Aris reached the control node and placed both hands on it. The light surged. Her body rose off the ground, levitating as the entire room began to tremble. The tower shook. A low, keening noise filled the air. Pax ducked under a falling panel. This is the part where we run right. No, Aris whispered, eyes burning. This is the part where we rewrite. A final surge, a scream that came from no throat, and then silence. The light collapsed into itself. The tower went dark. Aris crumpled to the floor. Pax was there in an instant, dragging her away from the now dead array, his voice breaking as he shouted her name. She coughed, then opened her eyes. They glowed gold. But it was hers now. The core had chosen. The overwrite was broken, and the signal was hers to command. Outside, across the city, the skies cleared. The pulse towers dimmed. The silence that followed wasn't fear. It was peace. For now, the pulse had stopped, but the silence didn't feel right. They emerged from Relay 0 at sunrise. The streets above the tower shimmered with dust and artificial calm, like the city had blinked during the event and hadn't quite decided whether to scream or sleep. For a moment, Aris thought maybe it was over, that breaking the core's control would end the hunt. Then she saw the shadow. It didn't move like a person. It drifted, too deliberate, too slow. Pax. She murmured, her voice still raw from the fight inside the tower. He caught it too. You seeing that? Yeah. The figure stopped halfway down the alley, standing in the golden light like it belonged in a different spectrum. Tall, armored in a material that seemed to breathe with the air around it. A long coat, not fabric, but some reactive mesh, moved gently in the breeze. Its face was a mask of matte obsidian, smooth and empty. No eyes, no mouth, just silence. And then a whisper in her head. Not words, feeling, recognition. The ghost protocol had been activated. They were no longer just being hunted. They were being contained. Aris froze. It's not a bounty hunter. It's a cleaner. Pax stared. Like someone who erases stuff. Someone who erases people when the tech they carry becomes a liability. As if hearing them, the figure raised a hand, and all the lights in the alley snapped off. Not flickered, just gone. Even the sun seemed to pause behind the buildings. Then the world lurched. Pax grunted, stumbling. Whoa, what the hell? Aris braced against a wall. It's shifting the field. Localized temporal compression. We're in a bubble. And that's bad, right? Very bad. The ghost moved forward. Aris didn't wait. She reached into the memory core, dragging up the map. The pulse grid, anything. Her fingers sparked with alien light as the interface projected around her like a luminous web. She grabbed Pax's arm and ran. The world slowed around them. Glass hung in midair. Rain froze mid-fall. Only the two of them moved. And behind them, the ghost still walking, still closing the distance. How do we beat it? Pax shouted, voice muffled by the warped time bubble. We don't. Not encouraging. They slammed through the edge of the field, and everything snapped back. The sky roared, lights returned, and the compression bubble collapsed behind them. But the ghost didn't follow. It just stood at the alley's mouth, waiting, watching, learning. Back at the hideout, a maintenance tunnel 3 levels beneath the abandoned tram station, they collapsed beside a flickering heater. Eris was shaking, not from fear, from memory. The ghosts were old, not soldiers, not machines, something between. Protocols embedded in synthetic shells, each one designed for a single task: eliminate the anomaly, silence the signal, clean the fracture. And now, she was the fracture. "I thought you shut the system down," Pax said, pacing. "I shut down that node. Relay 0. But the signal, it was distributed. The ghost protocol was a fail-safe. It activates when the core marks a carrier as unstable. Let me guess, unstable is code for too self-aware." Eris nodded. Pax sat on an overturned crate. "Well, that's poetic. You start remembering who you are and they send a walking black hole to wipe you out." She didn't answer because she was remembering something worse. The ghosts weren't deployed randomly. They linked to the carrier, shadowed them, learned from them, and eventually, if the kill failed, they evolved. The system would copy her code, her voice, her memories, and weaponize them, not just against her, but against anyone who might listen. "Pax," she said quietly, "we have to find the next shard. Now." He blinked. "I thought you said we needed time, rest. We don't have time. If the ghost gets to the shard first, it won't just destroy it, it'll rewrite it. Infect the memory with false patterns." She stood, her knees still trembling. "The longer we wait, the less of me stays mine." He stared at her for a beat, then stood too. "Then let's stay ahead of it." They packed fast. Ren pulled up the next coordinate etched in the last layer of memory she pulled from the relay. An abandoned orbital lab, hidden just outside the debris ring of Zeros 9. Dangerous, unstable, and completely off the grid. The perfect place to hide a shard, or to lose yourself forever. As entropy roared back to life, lifting them into the night sky, Eris stared out the viewport. Somewhere out there, the ghost followed. Not fast, not loud, but always. And when they met again, it would not be with questions, only erasure. She clenched her fists, then whispered not to the ghost, but to the one still listening. "I'm not yours, I never was." Behind her, Pax flipped a switch. "Course set," he said. "Next stop, Haunted Space Lab." Eris smiled faintly. Just another day. And with a shimmer, they jumped. They docked in silence, no comm chatter, no external lights, just the metallic hiss of entropy's airlock sealing against the derelict shell of the orbital research facility known in old records as Axiom Deep, a forgotten ring station orbiting the rogue planet Zareth, where gravity was a rumor and light came slow. Inside, nothing moved, and yet Eris could feel the signal hum through her fingertips the moment she stepped aboard. Faint, buried, but insistent. "This place feels wrong," Pax muttered, brushing dust from a shattered control panel, like someone dreamed a lab and then forgot to finish it. Eris didn't answer. She was listening. The walls whispered, not audibly but through the core embedded in her chest. Images blinked across her vision, a hallway of mirrors, a child's voice counting backward, a woman screaming without sound. Memory fragments, residual echoes from the minds once housed here. AI's offline, Pax said, pulling cables from a gutted console, emergency powers running in loops. Whatever happened here wasn't an accident. No, Eris whispered. This was intentional. They buried the shard in the data vaults, but it's locked behind synthetic trauma. Pax gave her a look. "I don't like any of those words." Eris turned toward the central shaft, the spine of the station. It stretched downward like a metal throat, its interior lined with fractured neural conduits. Lights flickered as she passed, illuminating flashes of her own reflection, but distorted. Older, colder, wrong. She kept walking. The lab doors at the end of the corridor opened with a sigh, revealing a circular chamber, walls pulsing with dim bioluminescence. Dozens of memory interface pods sat dormant around the room, each one like a metallic cocoon, and in the center, the shard, suspended midair, flickering in and out of phase like it couldn't decide whether it wanted to exist. Iris stepped forward. Instantly, the room shuddered. A scream tore through the air, not from outside, but inside her head. Eris Pax shouted, but his voice came distant. She fell to her knees. The core pulsed, and reality split. She stood in a corridor. Not in the lab, not in her body. She was somewhere else. A hall of memories. The floor beneath her feet rippled like liquid glass. Each wall flashed with scenes from lives that weren't hers, but felt like they could be a family she never knew. A child's laughter, a hand reaching for hers before disappearing into fire. A voice echoed behind her, "You want truth, then walk it." The labyrinth unfolded. Doors appeared, each marked with a symbol burned into the back of her mind, the emblem of the core keepers, her creators. One door led to the training hall's simulated combat arenas, where children fought illusions until they bled. Another opened to the chamber where her body had been modified biofused to accommodate alien memory lattice structures. And another to the first time she saw the stars strapped to a carrier pod, the Earth a tiny flicker behind her. "None of this is real," she whispered. But it was. These were her borrowed memories. The shard wasn't just holding data, it was holding identity fragments. Those who carried it before her, those who died with it inside them, their stories, their pain, their final thoughts, they were all still here. Then the final door appeared, black, unmarked. It pulsed with golden light around the edges. She stepped through and found herself on the other side of the lab, standing across from herself. But it wasn't her, not anymore. It was the ghost. Wearing her face, it smiled, then lunged. Iris barely had time to raise her hand before the world folded again. She screamed and slammed back into her body. Reality returned in a rush. The lab, the lights, the cold air. Pax knelt beside her wide-eyed. "You were out for 5 minutes." Twitching, whispering. "I saw it," she gasped. The shard, it's protecting itself, creating cognitive mazes. It's built from trauma, from us. That's why the ghost is copying me. It's trying to learn the maze too. "So what now?" Pax asked. "We walk away." Ari stood. "No, we finish the maze." She stepped forward, hand trembling, and touched the shard. It pulsed once, then sank into her palm like a coin, vanishing into water. A flash of white, then silence. The room calmed, the other pods dimmed. No more screams, no more visions. Just breath. Iris opened her eyes. The labyrinth was gone, but what she carried now wasn't. She turned to Pax, her voice quiet, steady. "The ghost can't be outrun anymore. It knows who I am. It's seen what I've seen, and it'll be waiting." Pax sighed. "Great, so what's next?" Iris looked toward the stars outside the viewport. "Now we find the original core, the one that started this. You sure it exists?" She nodded. "I saw it." And behind them, as entropy lifted off deep inside the Axiom deep vaults, something ancient stirred, watching, mirroring, smiling. The stars whispered louder now. Entropy drifted through a black corridor of space, known in ancient navigational records as the Silence Rift, a void between systems where gravity misbehaved and time skipped like a scratched vinyl record. Even the starlight arrived late here. Iris sat in the pilot's seat, eyes locked on a single blip. An old signal beacon pinging from a derelict outpost lodged in the bones of a broken moon. "This is where it started," she said, more to herself than to Pax. Pax leaned against the console beside her, chewing what passed for protein gum in their emergency rations. "I'm still unclear on why every major discovery leads us somewhere that looks like a haunted graveyard." "Because graveyards remember," Eris murmured, "and memory is all we have left." Entropy docked without ceremony, no defensive systems, no response. The station didn't care anymore. It had been abandoned long before the collapse of the ardent verge. What remained was a framework of crumbling corridors, shattered cryopods, and rusted plates that creaked under their boots. But the signal was strong, guiding, familiar. They moved deeper into the outpost, their steps echoing like apologies in a place built for silence. Then they found the chamber, and inside it a pod, long, narrow, covered in frost and fractured wires, and floating inside a woman. Eris froze. Her heart forgot how to beat. The woman's features were almost identical to her own, sharper perhaps, older, worn. Her body was pale, bruised with stasis lines, and a faint glow pulsed beneath the skin, tracing paths in the exact same pattern as the core embedded in Eris's chest. "This is her," Eris whispered. "The first." Pax exhaled slowly. The original carrier. The pod flickered, life support failing. Without waiting, Eris crossed the room and accessed the console. Her fingers moved like instinct, like muscle memory she didn't know she had. As if the code remembered her, she interfaced. The pod hissed, and the woman opened her eyes, golden, piercing, like memory condensed into vision. She didn't speak at first, just studied Eris, as if seeing a younger echo of herself. Then with effort, her voice emerged, cracked but commanding. "You found me?" Eris nodded, breath caught. "Who are you?" "I was called Ellis, before the collapse, before the shards fractured. I was the prototype, the proof. They used me to test if a soul could carry the weight of memory. And did it work?" Ellis smiled. "A tired, bitter thing. I survived. That's not the same." Pax kept his distance, watching like a scientist faced with a legend come to life. "Why stay hidden here? Because the others hunted me," she replied. "Not for who I was, but what I carried. The core didn't belong to them. It didn't belong to anyone. It was a living record of a civilization erased before your planets had names, and they wanted to weaponize it." Eris swallowed. "And now the ghost is doing the same." Ellis blinked. "So it survived. The mimic protocol. It's more than a protocol," Eris said. "It's a mind now, a shadow of every carrier it's touched. It's building a composite identity, and I think it needs both of us to finish. Because we're the bookends," Ellis whispered. "The first, the current." Eris nodded. "And it's mirroring us, hunting, learning." A silence fell between them. Then Ellis sat up, fully wincing as cables pulled free. "Then we give it what it wants." Pax raised an eyebrow. "You want to draw it in?" "Yes," Ellis said. "But not into this galaxy. Into us. Into a trap forged from memory itself." "You want to bind it," Eris realized. "Use the overlapping resonance between our cores, between our shared memory threads, to cage it." Ellis looked at her. "I want to end it." Pax looked between them, then muttered, "This is either a really brilliant plan or a really poetic suicide pact." "We'll need a junction node," Ellis said. "A core cradle. There was one on Nemoris 9, the first lab to ever interface with the shard's base signal." "Long abandoned," Eris replied, "possibly collapsed." "Then we dig it up," Elise said, standing on shaking legs. "Because if we don't stop this thing, it won't just rewrite us. It'll overwrite every civilization it touches." As they left the chamber, the pod behind them powered down. Entropy's doors closed with a hiss. 3 of them now, 3 carriers, 3 echoes of the same song, and behind them, in the broken outpost's deepest archive, an unseen monitor blinked to life tracking, watching. A presence stirred, not body, not voice, just want. The ghost had heard everything, and it was smiling. Nemoris 9 wasn't on most maps anymore, orbiting the dying star Enthras, its surface cloaked in volcanic ash and kinetic dust. Storms, the planet was once home to one of the most advanced signal labs in the pre-collapse sectors. Now it was a forgotten scar, an open wound in the spine of the galaxy, humming with ghosts that no one dared wake. Entropy touched down in silence. Outside, the landscape writhed with static winds, magnetic grit swirling in cyclones above cracked black rock. Ash drifted sideways across the sky like snow that had given up on purity. Aris stepped out first, the core beneath her skin glowing faintly as if recognizing the place. Ellis followed, leaning on a repurposed mobility brace Pax had built from a salvaged stabilizer and 3 kitchen parts. She moved like someone haunted by the echo of her own footsteps. Pax was last adjusting his goggles and muttering, "Fantastic. We've arrived at Hell's own filing cabinet." The entrance to the cradle was buried beneath 30 meters of debris. They dug with their hands. Then, with Entropy's pulse cutter, by the second hour they uncovered the vault doors, twin slabs of alloy etched with geometric sigils. Eris placed her hand against them. The core responded instantly. Light threaded from her fingers into the metal, crawling like vines. The doors groaned, then opened. What waited inside was not a lab. It was a cathedral, circular, vast, silent. Its ceiling rose into a dome carved with constellations. Some eras recognized, others lost to time. At the center of the floor stood the cradle, a towering spire of black crystal entwined with gold, wiring its apex split like a tuning fork waiting. "It's still operational," Ellis breathed. "By some miracle, it's alive." Aris circled it slowly, eyes wide. "This is where the binding happens." Ellis nodded. "We'll both sink to the spire. The core will reach for us. It will try to flood our minds, test our limits. We'll have seconds to lock it down." Pax didn't like the sound of any of this. "So, just to recap, you're both going to jack your brains into a galactic malware ghost with an identity crisis and hope your matching tattoos let you trap it inside a giant psychic tuning fork." "Yes," Ellis said simply. Pax scratched his head. "Cool. Just wanted to be clear before I start crying into my toolkit." They began calibration. The cradle hummed. The spire pulsed. Aris and Ellis stepped onto twin platforms flanking the spire. Cables slithered toward them, attaching to ports at the base of their necks. They didn't flinch. The moment their sync began, everything changed. Time unraveled. Memory screamed. Aris was no longer in her body. She was falling through her own history, through Ellis's, through fractured echoes of lives the core had touched, but never truly understood. She saw cities of silver sand swallowed by black waves. She saw a boy staring at stars he'd never reach. She saw herself as a child crying into a cracked mirror, and then she saw it. The ghost. Not a form, not a face, just intention. Vast, cold, searching. It looked at her and knew. "You are the imperfect copy," it whispered. "You are the fragment that should not have endured." "You don't understand," Aris said aloud. "You were never meant to be alone." The ghost recoiled. Aris felt Ellis beside her, her presence like a song held together by threads of steel. Together they reached through the cradle's framework and pulled. The spire lit up. The core flared inside both of them, ancient knowledge lashing like fire through their veins. The ghost screamed not in sound, but in crashing data, a billion corrupted voices howling to remain. "You were never meant to dominate," Ellis said. "You were meant to remember," Aris finished. The spire snapped closed, the signal inverted, and the ghost collapsed inward. Trapped, contained, bound, Aris dropped to her knees, gasping. Ellis collapsed entirely. Pax rushed in as the cradle powered down its glow, fading like a sunrise forgotten. He caught Aris before she hit the ground and pulled her upright. "Ellis," she gasped. She was still, eyes closed, but breathing. "I'm here," she whispered to Ard. The ghost was gone, or changed. Within Aris, the core was quiet now. No more static, no more visions. Just presence, calm, full whole. They had done it. Back aboard Entropy, Pax patched Ellis into the medbay systems, his hands steady, despite the storm of thoughts behind his eyes. Aris stood by the viewport, staring at the black beyond. "What happens now?" Pax asked. Aris turned. "We rebuild. Rebuild what truth she said. Connection, a new signal." From her collar, the core blinked soft gold. "Hope," she smiled faintly. "The universe has been afraid of ghosts," she said. "Now it can listen instead." Pax grinned. You sound like a prophet. I feel like a survivor. Entropy turned its course toward the fringe, toward others still waiting in the dark. Behind them, Nemoris 9 fell silent again, but this time not forgotten, not empty. Now it held a tether, a memory bound in light. If this story resonated with you, if you felt something stir while traveling through the static memory and connection of Eris's journey, then you already carry the signal. Subscribe to the channel and stay with us as we follow new echoes, new threads, and new stories through the stars. Your presence keeps the signal alive and the universe. It's just getting started.